Hey guys, welcome to my hybrid podcast where we talk about creativity, entrepreneurship, music, and so much more. Today on the show, I'm excited to have Carolina Ortiz, partner at Anagrama Studio, a world class creative agency based in Mexico, and one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to starting 25 branding years ago, precisely as a result of being their client not once, but twice back then. Hi, Carolina. Welcome to the Hybrid
Hi.
Podcast, and thank you for joining me today.
Hi, really happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thanks for coming on. I'm super excited to be speaking to you about a lot of things. So let's start from how it all started, and shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, should I give an overall view of how Anagrama started?
Yes, that was my question.
Okay.
Thank you for actually. How did Anagrama start come about as a studio? Really?
Okay. So, I've been at the studio since I think 10 years ago. So, I'm an old soul at the studio, but I wasn't like when it was founded. The studio was founded by Sebastian, Mike Herrera, and Gustavo Munoz. Um, they are like the founders. I think each one of their profiles, their skills, like complement each other. So I think they met when Mike and Sebastian were working at a design studio in Monterrey, and they're like Gustavo was one of their friends, so that they decided to start the studio. Gustavo is like this geek, like software engineer, but also like really good at strategy. So he was like the brain or like of the studio, and Sebastian and Mike were more of the creatives. So Mike is like design genius. I'm gonna use the word genius because I think that's like a really good way to describe him. Like he's he has a really sharp eye, and he has like different ideas, like ideas that he can express himself in a way that it's different from what we see. And I think that was one of the things that made Anagrama who it is right now. And Sebastian, he's also a creative, but I think he's really good at telling stories, at creating narratives, and also at selling projects. I think at the beginning he was pitching, but then he also started like doing the creative direction, or along the pitching he was doing the creative direction. But I think like Mike was the one with the detailed eye and just making sure everything was aligned and in grid, and like the kerning, the lighting, everything looked perfect. Sebastian was more about the concept, like the narrative, the overall. And Gustavo is the one who still makes sure everything is working smoothly, like financially wise, and also like knowing how to charge for projects. Actually, we currently have a software that we use, like a platform, to understand all of the project analytics. For example, how like what's their utility of each project, how many hours have we spent on projects. Um, Also, we create our quotes and scopes in that. We have like it's a really robust platform. Since it has been here in Anagrama for the last 12 years, so we've been adding
Gallant, by the
features.
way.
Yeah, Gallon, that's the platform. So
Amazing.
that's the one we use. And I think that's part of what makes us an agency that can commit to deadlines, that can also be flexible with clients sometimes when it's necessary, and also understand like overall insights about the company, like what projects are more efficient, which projects are harder, which services can be done faster, can be done better, even also like the performance of the team. We try not to focus too much on the performance of the team, because I think sometimes that can be a bit um like not negative, but can like it can then you can put all of the attention on the performance and not on the creativity. So I think there should be like a balance, and you have to be pretty flexible. But yeah, so that they started working on Gustavo's garage, and they started working on projects. At the beginning, Gustavo was also doing like website coding, like front end, back end. Mike was doing the branding, and Sebastian was also doing part of the creativity and the pitching of the projects. And yeah, so after they started working together, Roberto Treviño, who was one of the former partners, he joined the partnership, and he started running the architecture unit of the studio. And with Roberto and Sebastian, and of course the rest of the team, but I think the architecture part was more designed by Roberto and Sebastian. So they created Teurel and Thomas, which was the first project that made Anagrama popular, and that was like a big thing online. I think one of the factors that made Anagrama what it is right now is that they put a lot of focus and time on how they were presenting their work. I think for Teurel and Thomas, which is like a French pastry store, they did like a really nice photo shoot. They spend a lot of time on post production, just making sure everything looked perfect. And also, Denise, who was the client of that project, was like the perfect client. She was really open to new ideas, open to making these like investments on something that at that moment wasn't like obligatory. It's that, look, you could create a big business, but it wasn't like obligatory to have like a really cool branding. You just had to have a really cool product, and that was it. But I think Denise had a great product, and also she used creativity to make her brand bigger. So that's how they started. Then the team started to get bigger and bigger, and yeah, so now we're here. It's been more than 16 years from that, so it's a lot. Now, like, all of the partners are doing different things. Not all of them are like are still in Anagrama. Some of them are part time or collaborating in specific projects. Because life happens, and then you have another passion priority, or and you kind of want to try different things, which I think is something that makes Anagrama special. That and that also I learned not quite too long ago, that basically we love our work, and we love what we do, and we are perfectionists, and we put a lot of time, but we think it's really important to have like different passions and to explore different ways to be creative. I don't know. And I think that's what has been happening with all of the partners, including myself. I must say I'm always exploring different um, forms of expression. But yeah, so I don't know if you have any questions specific about how it started.
Amazing. No, that was the perfect answer, because you gave us a good overview of how it all came about, really. So that was my first question. Now I want to get into something else, is that I think this is very important for me and for the listeners to know about, is how did you guys manage to build such creative and flawless work over the years, since your work is like really impeccable, yet super cool and out of the box at the same time, while also being technically on point in solving real business problems based on real brand strategy.
Yeah.
So kind of, you were able to have this sweet balance between having like very impeccably nice looking brands that are attractive and beautiful, but at the same time solving real world problems and following or the basis like actual real brand strategy, which I think a lot of studios miss that part, the business part and the strategy part, and just like come up with like super visually interesting brands, but that don't really function that well. And I think you guys merge those two areas together very well.
Yeah. So I think um like the core of what we are right now, I think, was how like the founders' personalities, I think. Um because I think as even as they have moved on, or the studio has grown and we have more people like leading different teams, I think there were like three things that we always um, took as a priorities, and they were really clear on their expectations, each one. So Sebastian was all about creativity, all about doing different things, about breaking the internet, just this um this kind of stubborn personality of just doing things differently every once in a while, or all of the or project, if it's possible. But I think it's kind of a stubborn personality, but at the end, that's kind of like the push that we need for just making impactful work. On the other hand, we had Mike, as I mentioned, who was like this person who is this person who is like really focused on like the technical aspect of the design. So typography settings, um, grid. I remember when I started working at the studio, um, like the welcome part of the studio was, okay, so here's the grid system, read it, understand it, because it's gonna be like part of your daily work. And that's something that I carry like to this day. Like as people are entering to the studio, we have like now the team is really young, it's really different. It's really talented as well. I'm really surprised about like how, if everyone like is talented in their own way, we can do like different things. But um but yeah, I think everyone can be talented and everyone can be creative, but not everyone has all of the technical basis to create work that is great quality. So because you have to be really careful. I I'm like, when I see a packaging or when I see a website, I see all of these patterns, like on how, because people are like, how do you know if like a reference is good or a reference is bad? And it's just basically typography systems is that they're coherent, is typesetting and grid, and just also like balancing elements, components, creating design systems. But I think that was like Mike's legacy, kind of just making sure that everything was like really sharp to the eye. And then Gustavo was like the strategy person. And I think I have a bit of each one of them in me, but I think the one who I can relate a lot is with Gustavo. Of course, I have my own skills and what I bring to the table to the team, but I think I like what I can relate with Gustavo is just my creativity is much more methodical. Like I see patterns, I replicate patterns, and I do empathize with people. So basically, that's kind of my formula. And I think Gustavo, what he did was just creating patterns, making things that could be replicable, for example, for quotes, for services, for processes. And over the years, like there has been a lot of people who have leave their mark in the studio by creating processes, creating presentations. We make sure that every process that we're doing is documented somewhere, just to make sure that that when someone is entering the studio, they have at least a document to look at, just to understand how it works. But yeah, so I think that's like the core of how we work, like the detail eye, the creativity, and like the stubborn creativity, and also like the the numerical anxiousness of Gustavo, of making sure that all of the numbers are registered and all of the metrics are clear. And that's, I think I was like um this kid who understood really but because I started like really young at the studio, so I was the kid who understood the numbers. So I think that allowed me to make better decisions overall over the time. Uh, so I think over the time we have been a stable company. Of course, like the pandemic hit different. I know we will be talking about that later, but I think having all of these elements set um, has helped us to be stable over the years.
Which is actually, that's the perfect segue, Thanks for sharing all of these, the journey so far. So how did you guys deal with COVID, and how did it impact you as a studio and as a team? Which is where you stopped really right now. So
Yeah.
let's hear
Okay.
more about that.
Well, it was a journey. It was a complex journey for everyone at the studio. I think everyone learned a lot. I'm sure not only in Anagrama. I think it was like general thing.
All over the world, like really,
Everyone,
really, yeah. All of us
I was
too. Yeah.
questioning what we are doing. What should we do next?
It was, sorry to cut you off, but like it was the dark night of the
Yeah,
soul for everyone, like a collective dark
yeah,
night
it
of the
was
soul.
totally. Yeah, and I think if you were like too involved in that like mindset, it was hard like to be there. But I think for me, since I started leading the digital team of the studio. Now I'm directing like the well, we did a merge on design and branding. I'm gonna go why we did that merge the last couple of years. But I remember like seeing how everyone was going through something. They didn't need to be like COVID, right? Like it could be more existential, more about self esteem. It could be more about loneliness, But I could see, so I could really like reflect on everyone, and I think that made me like understand that it was something bigger, that it was because if you get like into that mindset, it's hard to get out. Like it's the reality. And of course, I had a lot of tools to help me. Of course, therapy, reading a lot about psychology, about emotions. I also like had to reflect on myself and on what I wanted to do, on if I was on the like asking like the hard questions, and doing the right moves or the wrong moves or so. That totally valuable. So how it was in Anagrama, I think there were like some major things. First, we had to become a remote studio. um, we already were using Slack. Some of our staff were already doing home office, so it wasn't that hard. But I think we had a really distinctive culture. Like we were friends, like we were really close. We spent all of our days together. We ate together every day. So we had a really close relationship with everyone. And I think we kind of didn't know how to continue those kind of relationships through remote work. But also we were questioning ourselves if that was like the right way to do work culture, because we were really, really close, like everyone. Um, which I don't think is necessarily bad. I had like the most fun years of my life at the Anagrama. Like I had a lot of fun. Um, you're working with creative people, so people are definitely fun, definitely eccentric, So I had a lot of fun. But we did have to question if that was like the right way to continue the culture. Um, but I think for like the first year, we were like okay with it. Like we were just hoping that it would end, and then we would go back to our life. So I think we were like too much questioning about the culture. We were like, okay, so maybe next year we'll come back and everything will be fine. Um, so that was the first part, which we later understood how to create community within remote work. But then something really something really interesting happened. So what happened first was that I don't know, people who had been at the studio for 4 years, like suddenly had 6 years at the studio. And I think it was really understandable that they were just asking themselves, like, am I going to be able to grow here? Because at the time we weren't able to grow people because we had to be really careful financially. We wouldn't, it was really hard, like, to do races. If we were like kind of unstable, we didn't know if there was going to be like post-pandemic financial thing, you know? So some people started like to look for different jobs. People who had been at the studio like 7 years, 8 years, you know, like people who had already like a lot of control of things. Another thing that happened is that um, international companies, mostly American companies, started looking our team just to work with them for like remote positions because definitely it was easier to hire like Mexicans that an American that lives in New York, you know, and well, all of our team is really talented. So I do see like the opportunity in there, you know, and I think it was a great opportunity for the people in our team. I think some of them jumped to like higher positions that maybe like in a regular scenario or non-pandemic scenario, like it wasn't going to be that easy. So I think it was positive for a lot of the people. But at the end, for the studio, we were like trying to handle everything and just trying to make sure that we were stable. Um, so I think it was a bit weird. Like you saw like you were on Slack, and every Friday there was a person who, hi, this is my last day at the studio. Thank you very much for your time, and you're really talented. And you're like, okay, so it's one person. Okay, the next week. Okay, the next week. And I think at some point we were like, okay, so we had a really big team. We were over 40, and like the workload wasn't as high as like other years. So we were like, maybe this is something good. Maybe this will help us to be a bit more stable and see where do we want to take this. So I think that's where we shifted a bit. Like instead of just like being too tense about all of these changes and just it was hard. I must say it wasn't easy. It was like you had something covered. Okay, so this person is out, but now like this person is taking the responsibility and they have a lot of potential. So I'm good, and then someone else would go, and you would be like, okay, so we need to solve it. At that time, Daniela was still working full time at the studio. Daniela is the former CEO of the studio. She was at the studio for 16 years, and we worked together a lot. And I think it was really how they say it. It was really nice to have someone, you know, who you could rely on, and we were both relying on ourselves and just, you know, say like, okay, so this is what's happening, so we cannot do anything, and just you know, we are both really aggressive women in a sense that we can take the challenges and we can take whatever is coming. So I think we did a great job like navigating through all of this instability. So we made the office was it's smaller now. We're around 23, 24 people, I think, which for me is perfect because now I can see all of the work that we're doing. I can just really focus on all of the projects, or if I cannot fully focus on one project, just make sure that the right person is working on that project, so just making sure everything is moving smoothly and perfect. So I think it was a good move. Another thing that we did is that we merged the digital team with the branding team. Now I think um, because of the pandemic, because of all of the services and all of the products were becoming digital, most of our clients were startups or just companies that needed to have an upgrade because they couldn't um, keep looking like old. They had to look new and different, Now, like our clients were not only asking us for a really beautiful typography for their work, they wanted to see how their branding was going to look within, within a website or within social media. So I think a challenge that all of our team went through, even partners, it was like, okay, so we need to become more
It's
digital.
such a great
So
platform.
we started using Figma for everything. So I'm a Figma predicator. Like I love Figma. I do everything in Figma. If I could do mathematics in Figma, I would do mathematics in Figma. So yeah, so we all started using Figma. Of course, not for everything. You cannot use Figma like for illustrations, iconography, like watermarks. But even our pitches, like how we were presenting, we moved like from Keynote to Figma. So I think that was a nice change. Our team started to work also on digital projects like web design. Like not like everyone is really good at something, so not everyone has to be like an expert on web design or branding. Of course, each one of them has their strengths, but we make sure that everyone understands how like all of the digital ecosystem works. And yeah, so now we are working on like this new studio, which it's more about telling a narrative, about connecting with people. It has more of a, it is looking for a positive impact on what we do as designers, and but we also have these spaces like creativity, technicalities of design, and
No, it's fine.
strategy. And yeah, I don't know if I'm missing something about the pandemic, but I think it was really really nice that I think last year, um like most of the team was new. Like most of the team had like 1 year at the studio, 6 months. So we didn't really know each other, and it was really hard because like you cannot really read people on Slack. You cannot really, So it was kind of funny because like maybe people weren't like being themselves totally, but we had like this end of the year reunion where everyone flied from their cities to Monterrey, and we did a workshop, and we did um like a dinner, and it was really really great. Like we were looking at each other, and we were like, oh, you're too tall, I thought you were shorter, or oh my god, you look really
The physical
different, or
interaction
I
connection
thought you were
is
like
different.
more serious, so we at that moment I understood that we were missing that, like that connection. And now I just recently moved to Mexico City. People are visiting here from different parts of Mexico, and we're working on a new office that it's gonna be, this is like or a past office, or like we now share it with another brand, but we're building
Like a hot
this new
desk, yeah,
office
co-work, yeah.
who's going to be more like a workshop, so people can come and go, so it's not necessarily that you're going to have a seat and that you have to be there like every day. So it's more of a like workshop thing. Yeah, yeah. So that's something that we're really excited about. And yeah, I don't know if I'm missing something about the pandemic, or is there anything that you're curious about? I'm sure like I'm missing things because a lot of things happen.
No, I think honestly, I think you covered the most intense stuff, which is what I was looking for, like the main event stuff. So no, I think you really covered it nicely. Yeah, so I have another question, which is I think we're done with the pandemic now, and we're moving forward, outlook to the future. But before that, because my question is that what's your future vision as a studio right now? But just before getting into that, I have one more question in terms of I'm really interested to know this. So, what are your ultimate top two favorite brands which you guys created over the years? If you had to choose two, if you can. I mean, it's an optional question, but it would be interesting to see.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah, because I know most of your projects, so why not us?
Okay, so my my favorite projects, I think it's really hard to choose from from all of the projects. Um, we recently worked on a wine in can, like from Mexico, like canned wine. Like it's
Yeah.
like you can drink. Yeah. So it was, and I think, and it is really personal. I don't think it's it's this I'm sure it's different for everyone because like every project touches you different, and
Exactly.
every like the aesthetics are really different. So I think worked we there was like this viñedo. I don't know how you call it, like this place where they do the wine. I forgot, like the winery, like
Like, yeah,
the
what
place
is it?
where,
Yeah.
yeah, where they had like wines, but they were looking to create this more fresh and young brand of wine. So they wanted to create like this canned wine. Um, so they came to us with this project where we're like, okay, so the winery is called Lopez Rosso, and we needed to create a name for the product. So I I didn't do naming before um before we did all of the merch, and I started also directing the branding thing. But it's really funny that we were doing branding, and we were looking for concepts, and we were like, okay, so we can think about a mix about um, Mexican and Italian. That could be the concept. And we were like looking about like this typography, Mexican style typography, like the popular ads, and also we wanted to have like something Italian. So we were looking about to these like pizzerias and Italian restaurants, signage, like, and we had that in mind, and we were looking for a name. And I remember that Daniela said, like, we should do something like Mexican Italian. Like, how do we do it? And I was like, okay, so maybe names. And we were like, yeah. And I remember I was watching The White Lotus, and I remember that they were going
I
to
love that
Palermo.
show.
And I was like, okay, so maybe we can do, because we were doing like, there was a brand here that was, or an Anara, I don't remember. It was like Pepe y Toño, who are like two names from like really common names in Mexico. So we were like, okay, so Pepe, it's like Jose, like it's like I forgot, like another name for Pepe. It's another name for Jose. So that's really Mexican. Like my father is called Jose, my brother is called Jose,
Yeah, it's
and
very
everyone
common.
has, yeah, everyone has an uncle or like their father, or like they're called like Jose Antonio. So it's like, so like kind of telenovela name. It
Yeah.
can be funny. So I was like, okay, Pepe. And I remember I was looking at um um the White Lotus. I was like, okay, so how about Pepe Palermo? Like it sounds funny, like Pepe Palermo, and Palermo is like this place in Italy, so it's perfect. It could be like a last name, but it could be, and we were like, okay, so and we can also like play with the word and say like, okay, so maybe we can do like let's go for a Pepe, or let's have a Pepe, or let's invite Pepe. It was like kind of fun how we could use the name. So yeah, I think I think it was something that unlocked something in me that I didn't need to be working like all of the time. Sometimes the ideas are on your life, like on what you're doing when you close your laptop and then you go home. So I forgot to mention this regarding the last question is that something that I think has changed is that before we had this hustle culture, of working a lot. And I'm a person who works a lot. Like, I must say it. I'm a person who likes to work because I don't know if it's my hyperactivity or if I was born like that or if I come from a hustler family, maybe everything. But I think in the pandemic, I understood that for me, it was more efficient to have time, like off time work, like different projects. I during the pandemic, I opened a coffee shop. So this, like, I used to work like 12 hours a day, like Anagrama and the coffee shop, and it was really crazy. And I love that part of my life. Like, it was like a romantic moment of my life, like going to a coffee shop and learning to do latte art. But I think it was really funny because we had been on the pandemic and we wouldn't be able to go out. And then when I opened the coffee shop, we used to put flowers like on every table. And it's gonna be like super corny and I'm a bit embarrassed by it, but I remember seeing like the flower like open, like through the day. And I thought, like, I was like, okay, so really this is what I'm missing, like seeing like the plants grow. And also, like, I became a plant lady on the pandemic, so all of my plants started growing, and just understanding like the world is moving around you. I think that's really different, and that's something I encourage on my team, that they are able to stop work and just have their hobbies, have their interests, have like just because I think that there's where inspiration happens. So
Yes.
this project, I come back to this project. This project is
I just want to add one thing. So you're a plant mom now, they call it.
Yeah, a plant and a cat, and I was a kombucha mom during the pandemic, and yeah, so everything.
Amazing.
But yeah, and then we did like the branding. Like, they are like one of our best clients, I must say, because they really loved the name. They really understood the reference. They were like, okay, let's do it. And also we did the branding, and the branding, it's really cool. It has all of these, it's subtle, like the Italian inspiration and also the Mexican rótulos inspiration. Everything is really subtle, but I think it's like everything clicked there. And also I love the name of, not only because I did it, but I think it was a lot of teamwork as well. And just remembering that I saw that I made that name by looking at other plaza, and like, why not? It is really funny to me. And yeah, and I have a lot of different projects. There's like, I don't work on all of them. Some of them I direct, some of them like are created by other creative directors at the studio. But there's one new type ventures. It's a venture capital. What I love about that project is that it has some Evangelion inspiration, Evangelion the anime. So that's also something that I like a lot, and also I really like how the website turned out. Momiji is a Korean skincare brand, and I had the chance to work with the founder, who is a really talented photographer, Mexican photographer. So like, it was like a really beautiful teamwork with her and her team and our team. And I think that was one of the projects which launched our digital creativity, because we did the website. Also in that project was involved also Noel from Greeny Type. He's like a Swiss type foundry, which I admire. So having the chance to work with Greeny Type, having the chance to work with Ceci Young, like with these people that I really admire. So it was one of the projects I enjoyed the most. And also I worked on the branding for the coffee shop that I opened during the pandemic. It's called Luquita. For that, I did the naming too, which I like, something that I learned from the past 3 years, that I can do naming, and it's really fun. And yeah, that I think those are resolute. I'm sure I have.
Yeah, I'm sure you have more, but I think, yeah, that's more than enough just to just to see what like it's interesting to know. So now back to the future vision as a studio right now. Where are you guys going? Do you have any plans for the future? Anything new coming up?
Yes, we have a lot of plans, and some of them are evolving as we are speaking. And I'm sure um, Mike and Sebastian can tell you a bit more later about what they're working on, because I know they are working on something really cool. Um, in my end, I'm working closely with Gustavo and Sebastian to create, and of course, like my incredible team at the studio. We're working on creating this new like studio. We're like it's gonna take time, and we're still gonna be working um, as an Anagrama for some time. But and we may work simultaneously. We will see how it works. But this studio has a different personality. I think an Anagrama did great on all of this perfection, and I think what we wanna do in this new studio is just be a bit more imperfect and just embrace that, And we of course are gonna still be crazy about grid and about typography, settings, and about all of that. But we wanna do fun things, I think. We also wanna bring narratives that connect in a positive way with people. We also wanna be seen as more human, I guess. Like to I think Anagrama is like this ethereal personality who doesn't have a face. We only have a face, a portfolio, and so it has to be perfect. And I mean, we are going to still work on our portfolio just as much as we have done with Anagrama, but um, I think we're looking to challenge ourselves. I think for me, it was like during the pandemic, I learned to be a bit more imperfect. Also because I was really rigid and strict, And over the time, I'm now over 30, so I've learned that there's a lot of beauty in imperfection. And I think one of my biggest strengths is just connecting people together, making teams, and just so I think that's like something really unique about humans, how if we ally together, we can create like great things. And yeah, we're still gonna do branding. We're still gonna do digital. We're still gonna do what we're doing, but just with a little twist, I guess. Of course, like the partners are still gonna be um, behind this project, so it's not something um, new to Anagrama. It's going to be like the same basis, But but yeah, it's gonna be really fun. We're working on this new office that it's taking more than I would like to, but we're getting there. It's a really cool space. It's like an old house, and it like the personality itself. It's just perfect for the studio. And yeah, Sebastian and Mike are working on something. I cannot really say because I'm not even sure, because it is evolving day to day. But I'm sure once it's there, they can tell you a bit more about it. And I'm sure it's going to be great and it's going to be beautiful because that's what Mike does. He creates like these beautiful experiences through design. And well, Sebastian, he's a creative, so he's looking to express his art in a different way. And yeah, so that's where we are right now.
Amazing, amazing. Super exciting. I can't wait to, hear what other stuff you guys are creating. But good luck with your new studio. It sounds also amazing. So we'll keep an eye on after that. So my pre-last question: what does music mean to you personally, Carolina? And is it or was it part of the work you guys do or part of the studio's culture?
Yeah, it's part of the studio cultures. I think it has evolved through the time. I remember that when we were all working together, of course, like we on the Fridays we would have like playlists. One was in charge of like the music on the afternoon on the Friday afternoon, and we would put like from really mainstream popular Mexican artists like Luis Miguel, to I don't know. I'm gonna say something cliche, but like Tame Impala, So it was like really different, and we had a lot of fun. I think something that Anagrama has kept from the beginning is that the people who work at the studio are really special and really unique and a bit eccentric, I must say. And I think that's kind of the culture that we allow us to be who we are, and that's why this studio Espina is looking to put that more on front. Like the authenticity of Mexican culture, of Mexican talent, of creatives. But yeah, getting back to music. Now I think during the pandemic, we weren't that open to share our interests, but now like every time we start to know each other better, we do share recommendations of music. I'm sure most of the team are musical. Like we have people in our team who do visuals for music bands. We have musicians on the team. We have artists on the team. But yeah, I think music is part of our everyday life. In my case, I must say that since I'm in meetings most of my day, I cannot really like listen to music. But I think I do try to have like a space to really listen to music. Like I usually, um, I'm I'm kind of hyperactive, where I'm not kind of, I'm like really hyperactive. So for me, it's a bit hard, like just to sit down and listen to music. Like I have, like there's a guy from our team. He actually has a band, and and I like he can just like sit on the song and just listen to music, and he's like the opposite of me, and I just to envy that. I was like, oh, I would love that. But I think I understood that music is more about my body. Like I'm a more physical and visual person. So my music moments are just like looking, like putting YouTube on my TV and just looking for new videos or old videos, and dancing also. I think dancing is part of my life. So I think my relationship with music is a bit more physical. Singing out loud, not, of course, not in public, but I think my relationship is definitely more about my body and how it relates to music. I have been on like drums classes, and I've been trying to play instruments. Um, my attention just does not allow me to be so disciplined about it. But
Yeah.
I'm
I can
sure when I
relate.
get there
Yeah.
at some point of my life, I'll have the discipline.
I can totally relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Now this is my last question. I usually ask these two questions for some reason to everyone. So what helps you get in your creative flow, and what is your favorite type of music?
Okay. So what makes what gets me in my creative flow, I think, just having like a nice space to work in. I think that's really important. As I said, I'm a physical person, so just having like a space where I can just focus on, and it doesn't have to be like clean, or empty. It has to be like mine, like that I understand where I am, that I understand the space. Having a coffee, a cup of tea, I think that's really important for me. I'm like a coffee snob. I'm the cliche of
Likewise.
creative, but yeah, but I'm a coffee lover. So having a coffee. I also have a lot of tricks because I do have some attention deficit disorder. So having mindful music, it also helps. Like I always play this ADHD mindful music, and I have like these noise canceling sounds, and that has helped me a lot. But also as I mentioned, what helps me to get in my creative flow is just going outside my desk, like movies, um, museums, parks, just touching the grass. I think touching the grass is perfect moment for creativity because maybe you have all the information to get a great project, but you need like some space to put it together. And when you have a lot of things to think about and to touch and to make and to do, yourself on your iPad, and I don't know. So you are not actually taking the time to process all of that information. But I think just touching the grass every once in a while, um, creating these like moments of individuality help, um, writing, drawing, but I think it all comes back to the same. And my favorite music, I like everything. I'm like from the last past years, I've been doing a lot of um, we really like female vocalist music or female music because I think from my perspective on a woman in design, I think we need more people to listen to us or to see what we're doing because um and it's kind of a way to support, but also it's kind of a way to discover my own voice because you can see how they're doing and what they're doing. And I also do a lot of reading, like female authors from Latin America. Like that's um my current interest. But I do that with music. For example, I like Crown Ballad and like all of these indie artists. But I know I also like I have a side of me. I also like a lot of Spanish. I think the pandemic also made me more in touch with my roots, my Spanish, my Mexican roots. So I do listen a lot of rock, Argentinian bands, Mexican bands, like Spanish music. I think I really enjoy that. Just to be able to sing out loud, like in your language, is great, and it's really powerful. Then it connects in some way with who you are, and yeah. So I think like Latin American rock, indie rock, or female artists in the US. I also like a lot, for example, Torima, and like the obvious creative band. Um, but something that I also enjoy a lot is like regional music from my city. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I cannot listen to all of this again. Everything sounds like the same, and that's what gets me like out of my routine, like just listening to regional music. And it's funny because like I do like to listen every once in a while Ramon Ayala, who is like this old guy who sings regional music from the north of Mexico. But I do now it's really popular, with Bad Bunny and Grupo Frontera. Like it's something weird is happening that suddenly northern regional music is being mainstream, and it's really funny. And I didn't do like that on purpose. I think it was something more about like I saw a TikTok of like a vintage video of my city with that music on top, and it was kind of nostalgic, and it made me feel something. And I'm like, okay, so there are times where I need to listen to this. But yeah, that's a bit of everything I get.
Amazing. That's super cool. So first of all, thank you, Carolina, for being so candid, so real and transparent. And thank you for sharing Anagrama's journey thus far. And I cannot wait to see what new things you guys are going to innovate, whether it is with your new sister studio or Anagrama's new vision. I will definitely stay tuned. So thanks for taking the time, and say hi to the rest of the team and the partners. And hopefully we'll talk again soon. You can check out Anagrama's work by following them on Instagram at Anagrama Studio. This was all for today's episode. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at 25 Branding and at Hybrid 25 Podcast. The podcast will be available on all streaming platforms. Stay tuned for my next episode and peace out.
Thank you. Bye bye.